WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by JW Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Thank you for being with us today. My name is JW Simmons. I'm your host. Our guest is the County Manager for Sampson County, Ed Causey. Ed, thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Ed, we were talking a bit off air. May 2010 signaled your arrival here as the County Manager for Sampson County. I want to kind of give people a little brief look back. A lot has occurred, and in that now looking at 13-year period. Prior to that, you were with the federal government and you worked with making sure that local governments received as much as you could make it happen, the necessary loan funds and financial assets. And I want folks to understand that you've been in this financial responsibility business for quite a few years.
I have. I started my career with USDA, which used to be the Farmers Home Administration, back in 1970 as a student trainee. And that organization was transferred into USDA Rural Development, where I worked through up until 2010 when I came to Sampson County. And during that period of time, the last 10 years of my career with USDA, I worked with the county and did a lot of financing for both new county buildings and schools. So I had a lot of exposure to a lot of your towns and municipalities and the school systems before I came as county manager.
I would say a deep well of experience and responsibility that you brought to this county. I want to ask you and kind of open the conversation today from 2010 until now. What have you seen as the trajectory and the demands that has been placed on government, particularly as it relates to maybe what the public's expectation is? Government has a responsibility, but at the same time, they have to have a way to engage the assets to carry out that responsibility.
That is true. I would tell you that in my 13 years, I've seen the demands for what the expectation is of people in Sampson County, as well as North Carolina and the United States, is they want increased services and they want to minimize the cost of those services as much as possible.
When we look at services in the county, we're talking 22 plus or minus departments in the county. But when we look at that, what has changed since 2010 and now, what that you're hearing from either the public or what is the governance body, the commissioners, the folks that actually, you're the one person they look at to take care of everything. What are you hearing from them and what are you seeing that's changed since 2010? What is that dynamic? Has it been the COVID era? Has it been something other than that? But it just seems to be there's an unrest that's going on.
I would tie it back to, I think since I came in 2010, the expectations have been evolving. I think the pandemic changed the dynamics everywhere significantly. For whatever reason, I think people were at home and had time to think about it, and they were stressed with the situation, not knowing what the future was going to be. And so then they had the outlook coming forward that we need things to be better. And after you've hit that low point, the trajectory up, the expectations have been higher. The other challenge that came through that is you had people with a loss of income, you had inflation that was been super high, and at the same time when you have inflation everywhere else, county government is not unaffected, so we've had the same challenges with creating services that we could afford to provide and had the revenue to pay for.
One of the things that I recall that it seems like it just, and I'm going to pick out just this one department, there's been this huge movement now for county water. And over the past 13 years, you've seen that unfold from the beginning to where it is now. Is that something, the expectation of folks in the county to have access to that county water system. I know recently the governor was down and touted what was going on in the Harrells community with the possibility of expanding county water down there. Is that a push simply because the old well system is not able to survive the expectations of what the public is?
I think things are changing. People now see a lot of the services that are being provided as a right rather than an opportunity or something that can be provided. We've got to bear in mind that in counties like Sampson municipalities, we operate our water system as an enterprise fund, which we expect or try to plan it where the customers or businesses that are utilizing the system pay for it. Mm-hmm. In order to do that, you've got to have feasibility. For example, in the Ivanhoe area where we've got the $13 million grant, we are delighted that we're able to do that. And people says, well, why haven't you done it before? Well, at the same time, you've got to have economic feasibility in where you would have to pay some portion in loan. We just could not come up with rates that people could afford to do that. So the opportunity came where we were able to get all grant, and that's increased the possibilities. And so if we can get lines in the ground, then it will be a little easier to provide water to additional customers once we get this system established. But you still, I'd like to remind all of your viewers, it's an enterprise fund, and the system has got to be able to pay for itself. If you have got a user, for example, that's 4 miles down the road and there are no other users, it is just very difficult to figure out a scenario where you could provide that customer water. And so there's still some feasibility because water's got to pass through the line. So if you have few customers, you then have the increased challenges of having to flush your lines more in order to have fresh water. And so you've got to be careful, or you can make decisions in some parts of the county that will negatively impact the overall operation of your water system. Yes, we want to provide water to everyone we can, but at the same time, we have a responsibility to maintain the physical integrity of the system that we're operating for the benefit of all of the 6,000 customers that are presently participating.
And when we look at that water system, a part of the benefits that you've been able to push some of these things forward through with the county has been with grants and other things that has been very fortunate, because probably the county wouldn't have the assets to do it unless somebody had gotten those grants together and said, look, here's a chunk of money, we can make that happen. But what you're talking about also is the sustainability of it.
That is exactly correct. In my experiences with USDA, we generally made grants at the 40% level or the 75% level. By the time I left, it was very few circumstances that we made a 75% grant. So even then, if we were making a community a 45% grant, say a $10 million development project, and we were only given $4 million in grant, depending on the number of users you have, it could still be difficult to come up with something that the individuals could afford to repay. So when you come up to the current circumstance of getting 100% grant, that is a phenomenal opportunity that we're delighted we're able to provide to people in the southern portion of the county.
When I looked at the budget itself, and I was thinking about in June when the commissioners actually adopted this is the budget for 23-24. Give us an idea, because I want folks to understand that this is a arduous, detailed process that goes through layers and layers of not only regulation, but making sure everything fits. Kind of give us an idea of bringing that together, some of the things that the commissioners looked at that you had to follow through with to fit, because I'm sure when your team brought it to the commissioners, here's what we can do, they had, well, can we move this or can we make this happen? Just give us a 20,000 foot kind of expectation of, so I want folks to understand how and the dynamic and the demand it placed on you, your team at the county, and just also thank the commissioners for everything they've done. These folks are really in a high pressure job too.
Let me start at the end, and then you can ask your questions. This year, when the budget was approved, the commissioners turned around and immediately adopted a resolution that set the stage for how we were going to do business moving forward. So our budget process for next year has already started, and a lot of what we expend is for people. So they set up some very stringent criteria. We recognize that the cost of government is going to increase, but our commissioners are very responsible in deciding what can we do to minimize. And we're not going to eliminate the increased cost of government. What can we do to minimize or better control the cost of government? So they came in to doing a variety of things. For example, we're going to come back and review all of our vehicle policies to make sure we got good policies in place. We just can't stop in any given year and say we're not going to buy vehicles, but it would serve us well to be very prudent in the decision making on how we go about that and how we have the process to make sure that as time moves forward, we can accommodate all of the needs of the departments. They came in, for example, and says, one of the costs you have is people, which is a significant portion of our budget. A lot of times you can get a federal grant, or we get lucky. Well, we'll give you this position for 2 years if you'll keep it moving forward. Well, you just impacted future budgets. Our commissioners just come back and says, at this point in time, we're going to be careful about considering grants to get somebody funded in the short term on the expectation we're going to permanently fund that position. We're not saying we won't do it, but that's not going to be a given if somebody offers us a position for a year and then we've got to keep it in perpetuity. So the commissioners are trying. So that process has already started. If we have a vacant position, then all departments have got to come through the county department to ensure that there is not an alternative for that position.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back from break, I want to kind of get into that whole conversation about doing business going forward. And we're looking at a $200 million plus budget. So I think it would be interesting to give folks an idea of how that operational mechanism works from an oversight position like you're in, to fulfill not only the expectations of the public, but to follow those expectations of an elected board of commissioners, who is the governor's body. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment to talk a bit more in detail about the governance, about what's happening in Sampson County from the county manager's perspective. Stay tuned.
For the ultimate Wi-Fi experience, you need whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Star's whole home Wi-Fi provides ultimate coverage, ultimate performance, and ultimate power all the time. Star's whole home Wi-Fi systems feature the latest Wi-Fi 6 technology and are equipped with unrivaled bandwidth and 4 times more simultaneous connections. So you can connect tons of devices throughout your home with no lag and no downtime. Plus, with 24/7 support and remote troubleshooting, you can rest assured that Star is always there to help you should any issues arise. Star's whole home Wi-Fi also comes with the Command IQ mobile app, putting you in control of your home network and making it easy to set up and connect devices, run network speed tests, pause Wi-Fi, and set parental controls all from the palm of your hand. It's the ultimate Wi-Fi experience. Contact Star today to get started.
Just because something may work doesn't mean it's right for your business. Let Star Communications' knowledgeable consultants help you customize a hosted voice system that's right for you. Our dedicated experts work with you to understand your business needs and guide you at every step, from choosing and installing services to ongoing maintenance and support. Contact Star today.
Welcome back, folks. We Should Know's on there. I want to thank you for being with us today. If you're coming to us on WCLN Radio, Star Communications TV, Channel 16, whatever medium you're on, we appreciate you being here. We're talking to the county manager today, Ed Causey, about things that is impacting your life, about the funding for the county, about how this plays out in the coming year, budget year 23-24. Ed, thank you for being here. And also, it's always a pleasure to just sit down and have a conversation with you. As we went to break, one of the things you mentioned I thought was very important is the moving forward with this budget, this $212 million plus budget for 23-24. give us kind of a roadmap for what you're seeing out your windshield as the manager for all of the departments in this county, and looking at what your expectations is, and how do you see a lot of these things playing out? Because folks, I think, sometimes have trouble visioning what your vision may be, because they're maybe looking at one particular aspect of it or their expectations. And let's start with employees. The county employs quite a number of people. One of the things I think COVID, you mentioned a while ago, brought us, everybody expects more money. Everybody expects more benefits. I'm going to just take this moment to let you speak to the employees.
From the standpoint of the employees, our employees, if you think about it, if you're looking at infrastructure, you got two types of infrastructure. You got your physical infrastructure and you got your human infrastructure. And we can argue all day which is more important. I would tend to tell you the human infrastructure is extremely important, and that's something we've got to maintain. We've had lots of discussion over the last year with the rampant inflation and everything else, where we adequately pay in our employees. And I think the county has done an extremely good job over the last year. I'm not necessarily saying we've done all that we needed to do, but if you look at what has been accomplished on behalf of compensation for employees, we have done good. Well, the public might then turn around and say, well, why is that so important? Well, at the end of the day, we are a customer service-based government, and your customer service is based on the people, and the better people that you have to provide those services, the better the public is going to receive those services. So it all stands in. So it is a constant challenge. When you carry that forward, think about the rate of inflation that has occurred, or a difference in cost between now of services or food or gasoline or electric or anything over the last 2 years. The county has not increased the tax rate, yet those expenditures have increased for the county just like they have. So if you look at your budget, says, well, what I'm spending for gas and oil and groceries has increased. We have the same situation on the county side of having to absorb those expenditures. Likewise, when we're doing that, if we're not going to increase the tax rate, and we have a high tax rate, we've got to consider, can we expand and start providing additional services and make sure that our fees are commensurate with the services being provided, so that we can do the best job possible of sharing the burden of costs for county government. Unlike the federal government, we don't get to carry a major deficit. We've got to operate with a balanced budget, and we don't get to go out and print money. So we have that balancing act that occurs every year.
I think one of the things you just touched on is very interesting. I will maybe follow that thread for a moment. Is this idea, if you look at the federal government, I think the last time I looked at it, it was that debt clock is going up well over 32 trillion in debt.
Yes.
I mean, that's how much the federal government owes. With the county, that budget that you look at has to not only be balanced, but you have to look at the controlled expenses to make sure it doesn't get out of balance.
That's exactly correct.
Because you just can't say, well, some department comes in and says, well, look, I need 50 more people. Well, it ain't going to happen. It's got to be in the budget. You got to be able to see that. How do you deal with these situations that oftentimes folks out there in the population might not understand exactly that and want to change something in the middle, or not offer? Many times you've told me, if somebody comes in, you're welcome to listen to somebody's complaint, but you're also excited if they've got a solution.
That is exactly correct. See, one of the challenges we have is, once the budget is in place, we've got one time to establish the revenues and make projections for the year, particularly as opposed to the tax rate. So if we have a major expenditure, a major need that comes up in the middle part of the year, we've either got to do it on anticipation that we're going to take that money out of the general fund and then absorb it into the budget next year. So we tend to try to shy away from making as many significant increased expenditures during the year once the budget is placed as possible. Otherwise, you can set the stage for some very difficult and challenging times.
When you look at county employees, the question also comes up: securing and maintaining qualified and quality employees. how do you thread that needle to make sure that the employees are adequately benefited, at the same time being able to place that where it meets the requirements of a very solid budget? You got to keep the sustainability of the budget in mind as well. That seems to me to be kind of a friction point.
It is a clash at all times. I think the first thing people have to come back and understand, there's a difference between your cash position and your cash flow position. Your cash position for the typical family is the amount of financial resources or cash that you've got available to you in the bank, as well as your real estate assets. And that comes up to give you a total financial position. Well, that's good. The challenge then is the family then needs to look at the reoccurring income that they have got coming in, and is that income sufficient to meet all of the obligations you have? Same thing for county government. We have worked hard to maintain a sound financial position, and I would argue with you that we have made a lot of progress with that and done very well over the last 10 or 12 years with a lot of prudent decision making. At the same time that comes up, I will tell you that we've got cash flow challenges to have the available income needed to pay the expenditures. And therein is where you then have your conflict about trying to operate within the interim period and also be prepared to deal with whatever the future brings to you.
Is it hard to, obviously it is for just the average person, and I consider myself just the average person, it is hard to project what the future may hold in what seems to be, for the past at least 3 or 4 years, has been a dynamically changing environment. How do you do that from your position on the large amount of folks that you have responsibility for and to, and both sides of that, the employees in the departments and the people in the county? How do you look at that future and determine where is the next left or right turn?
Well, we try to project out as much as we could. You got two things anytime you do a budget. If you're going to be smart and plan to be around for a while, there's two things you've got to do. Number one, you've got to look at what is sustainable in the short term, and then the second thing is you have got to think at some point in time the long term and what do you need to do that. You know, we can discuss economic development all day long, but the commissioners made the decision 4 or 5 years ago that we needed to take responsibility for our future and begin to think about economic development, enlarging that tax base in order to have the income to sustain county government. But more importantly, is to take some active measure in providing jobs for people that want to continue living in the county as they age. For example, we need to provide. Sometimes that means making expenditures in order to provide for that future, and there is a plethora of opinions on that as to what you do. I can't say anybody is totally right or anybody is totally wrong, but if you don't at some point in time take some interest in what the future is going to be, then you're inclined to create what you've done in the past.
I want to pick up on that for the next segment coming up and just talk about the economic development piece, because I think if we spend some time on that, that'll give folks a bigger picture of what we maybe need to see as a generator of revenue. But I want to back again to some of these other things. It seems to be that going forward, that when you look at assets coming in and assets going out, that at any time during that budget cycle, you also have to be prepared for that unexpected thing that might happen.
Yes, I will tell you, for example, by law, you have got to maintain 8% of your budget is required by local government. At the same time I say that, the local government commission will also project what percentage of assets that you have, and for a county of our size, they want us to maintain 30 to 35% of our budget in the general fund at all times for those unexpected expenditures. And we're pretty much on that mark and have done well to maintain that. For example, if we have a hurricane or other natural disaster, we could have hundreds of thousands of dollars of expenditures that have to be paid before we potentially have the opportunity to get reimbursement from FEMA. So we have got to be prepared for the unexpected. The other thing many people may not realize is when the challenges of government or the challenges in the economy are becoming more austere or more difficult, that's when the demand for many of our county services increase. So we're operating the inverse. A lot of times when the economy is going down, the expenditures of county government are going up, and we've got to be prepared to deal with those circumstances.
One of the things I want to do when we come back from break is talk about this economic development issue, because that, to me, when I think about revenue, that always comes to mind as a revenue generator, and look at it from the sense of what we're looking at now. Also, I want to kind of touch on this idea of when you became 2010, you became county manager in May of 2010, you walked into a lot of things that needed to be done, and I want to kind of touch on both of those things when we come back. So we're going to take a quick break. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. We're talking with Ed Causey, County Manager. I think you'll find this interesting as we move forward. Please call a friend, and we'll see you in one moment. Stay tuned.
Providing fewer commutes, more backyard offices, and crystal clear meetings. Providing less, you froze up. And more presence in your presentations. Providing a better internet experience. Providing possible.
You're out for an evening on the town. Finally a chance to relax and forget that you left your front door completely unlocked. Fortunately, you just installed a security system from Star Communications. With just your cell phone, you can check on your house, lock it down, light it up, and get back to relaxing.
You forgot to put Buster in his crate.
Unfortunately, we can't help with that. Security and automation from Star Communications. Call today to find out more.
Most aging adults want to stay in their homes as long as possible. And as your loved ones get older, you want to support them, even when you can't be there. Star is proud to offer Star Alert. This new system is now mobile and has GPS compatibility, so your loved ones can live their lives and you can have peace of mind, knowing they can get the help they need with just the simple push of a button. The new Star Alert also offers automatic fall detection, so help will be alerted even if they can't press the button. Call and ask about Star Alert today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. JW Simmons here, your host for a show we call We Should Know. You could call it a show or a program. Either one of those works. We come to you on Star Communications TV, Channel 16, WCLN Radio out of Clinton, North Carolina. We're talking county government with Ed Causey, the county manager. Ed, we went to break and we struck a note that I wanted to kind of follow up on in this segment. Actually, two of them. One is economic development. The other one is in 2010 when you came in as county manager. There was a lot of things that needed to be addressed from not only did you see, but I think the commissioners started seeing as well. And a lot of that was the assets, the availability to have I'm going to call it a buffer to some extent. And you alluded a while ago to those emergencies. Tell us about what you've seen and what's happened over the past 13 years as you've tried to build that buffer in case there is a major disaster situation.
Basically, when I came in 2010, and even before that when I was with USDA, going back to probably 2000, I recognized that the county's cash flow position was not necessarily unsound by any means, but it was limited. And what we had is what the county had done is there was a lot of pent-up needs. And the pent-up needs were buildings, both for the counties and for the school systems that were needed. The county did a very good job over a 10-year period of trying to deal with a lot of that infrastructure need. Unfortunately, they ended up putting in the tax structure that was a little less than what was needed. So when I came in 2010, one of the things that I recognized is we just did not have the money to put into building reserves and things of that nature that were needed. No fault of anybody's, it's just a matter of circumstances. So in that period of time since then, what we have tried to do is come back and be fiscally responsible and come back and set up the reserves accounts to be as responsible as we could. Now, to sit here and tell you that we've got all the reserves that we need to meet our needs and those of the capital of the school systems would be a little bit disingenuous. But what I can tell you is we're in a much better position than we were some years ago, and it's an ongoing battle.
And I think that sustainability issue is the thing that comes to mind in this conversation. It seems to me now we're able to sustain. We're not in a situation that we feel like we got to close the doors on a building or something. We can sustain for some more years, and hopefully things will come up. Part of those things that may come up to benefit us falls within that one department that you have in government called economic development. And help us understand from and of course I've had Stephen Barrington and Ray and others on talking about this, but from the county manager's perspective, how critical do you see going forward as it relates to revenue, particularly that economic development department and what it is doing and what it has done?
Let me just break it down and simply put, a county government operates on revenue coming in to serve the people. The county governments generally have two sorts. You get some revenue from sales tax, you get some revenue from property tax. Unless you're willing to raise your tax structure, then the best opportunity is to raise your tax base. Mm-hmm. And counties that are successful put a lot of time and investment in creating the infrastructure and those needs so they can attract industry that not only adds to your tax base, but they add to your opportunities for employment, which gives you all kinds of residuals for other things. Our county commissioners some years ago, and nobody ever wants to undervalue agriculture. Agriculture is the base that keeps us going, but at this point in time, we've got to do other things that helps the agricultural community sustain the county. So the commissioners have made this effort that we want to be inclusive and we want to create the opportunity wherever we come. When industries are going to locate in your county, in today's times, so you can get some small businesses, and we appreciate and laud those, but at the same time, large industry or medium-sized industries that are coming in, they want the infrastructure in place to have sites that are ready to build on when they come. In counties that do not invest in those kinds of resources, do not have near the success as the counties that do. And so simply put, we have made the investment and working very hard in order to have an availability of sites where we can attract industry to come to Sampson County.
What I hear you saying is you have an expectation when you look at what economic development is doing to make sure that folks not only know we have something to sell, but highlight the benefit of what we've got to sell.
That is exactly correct. And the other side of that, you don't always get your immediate return when you make the investment, and people get frustrated, and there's a legitimate opportunity to offer some critiques. For example, we recently went on a tour, and I noticed there's an industrial park right on the county line up on 421 that Pender County has. Mm-hmm. Well, that park has been in existence for 10 years or more, mm-hmm. but really developed wonderfully once all of the infrastructure. It took them years to get all of the water and sewer and paved streets that they need, and once they got that in place, it took off. And it seems to be an excellent place to be. Same thing with what we're doing. People get frustrated. Well, you spent this money. What industry have you got? Well, we're still working on getting all of the infrastructure needs. And to sit here and suggest to anybody that we can guarantee you that the industry is going to come tomorrow, we cannot. We can tell you that if we do the things we need to do, industry will come. We just may not be able to predict the exact time and place that it will occur.
So when we're having this conversation and everybody's read this in the paper, the county purchased 200 plus acres of land in Newton Grove.
Yes.
Strategic location on I-40, unbelievable asset. But the turnaround time on that is not going to be a next month thing or even possibly a next year thing. It's got to be groomed to make it attractive for folks to land there and say, I can put my plant, factory, business, whatever. How do we sustain that until that time happens? Because there's certain things that is going to be an expense to get it rolling.
Well, we're working closely with the town, and there are a variety of things that have to be done. There's some development that can occur, but it's going to be difficult to have major development there until we get all of the improvements that are needed in place. And there's a variety of grants and investments that can be made over town, and we're thoughtful and hopeful that some of those things will occur and occur rather quickly. But to tell you that we're going to have the park ready next month, no, I cannot do that.
But it seems to me that location is probably as strategically important location for this county, especially in the northern part as it relates to the growth of Wake County and the push out now that's hugely impacting Johnson County. And most folks will say, well, eventually it's going to impact Sampson County as well.
I think you're exactly right, and I agree with you on the importance of that property. It is extremely strategic because of its location and its visibility. And once something starts there, you get an entirely different visual than you would otherwise, and all of a sudden you're going to have people riding down Interstate 40 and say, maybe we need to take a deeper look at Sampson County and see what's here. Other areas in the Triad are becoming very populated and very difficult and very expensive. Maybe this is an area that we need to move into. And I think from that standpoint, the county is being very smart in trying to define and develop its future rather than to react to what somebody wants to bring toward us.
I've heard this comment many times that the idea that developing revenue is everybody's responsibility, not just economic development folks or the county manager or county employees. It's everyone's job in the county to think about how do we develop economically here.
Everybody that lives here, this is everybody's county. It's everybody's home. We all have a stake in what happens, and the more people that are interested in helping us to reach out to develop positive things, the better off that we are.
And you've done this in the past. If folks have comments, they can even get that to Stephen Barrington, who's economic developer. If they want to shoot you a message or a text or something or email, they can do that. But the thing is, if they have an idea or a contact, it might seem small, but none of it is overlooked.
That is correct. We also have a very good economic development board that works with Stephen in trying to get information out and develop and get people interested. So we are very much attuned to welcoming new ideas, opportunities, and suggestions.
We're coming up on our next break, and I want to kind of set the stage for the last segment. But I want to give you some latitude to look at not only what the expectations are that you're looking at, that you see down the road, but things that folks might be able to help you with as it relates to identifying something that maybe you were not aware of, or maybe you're aware of it and they may have a solution or they may have a suggestion. I think sometimes the turbulence, Ed, that I see is folks may not see the complete landscape, and therefore they might get aggravated at something that's happening that might affect one of the departments in the county, and they don't understand the true aspect. And also at the same conversation, talk about some of what I've seen as I read. It seems the county commissioners has said to the county manager, here's some things that you've got latitude to address and deal with. And you pointed that out a while ago or alluded to it as it relates to the budget. The budget's passed, but now here's the plan. And the plan may be as important as the budget. So I want to talk about that as well. A lot to cover in this last segment, but we'll try to get in as much as we can. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being with us, and I want to take a moment to remind you that you can reach us at weshouldknowedu@gmail.com as we go to break. You can also see me on the street. You can send us a card or a postcard. Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina. Just put WSK on it, or We Should Know. I'm always interested in your thoughts and comments. We're talking with Ed Causey. We'll be back in just a few moments, and we will discuss more about what you expect and what realistically may happen from the perspective of the county and the services that the county brings to you each and every day. We'll be back in a moment.
Eastern North Carolina is a beautiful place where we gladly choose to call home, and we strive to provide the best communications services. STAR is committed to improving communications to all our service areas because we want to improve the communities where we not only work, but also live. STAR Communications. We are neighbors serving neighbors.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our STAR Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're coming up on the last segment here. The name of the show is We Should Know. JW Simmons here, your host. We're talking with Ed Causey, the county manager. Ed, over the past 10, 13 years or so, from May 2010 to now, it's been a fast ride. It's almost, for me, I think it's maybe age as well, it's like the blink of an eye, and we're sitting here looking 2023, 2024 budget. As we look at that, there's been a lot of changes in the county, but there's also a lot of expectation on the part of folks because you're now seeing so much going on in Wade County, in Cumberland County, in counties that are close by and adjoining. I want to talk about in this last segment the visions that you have going forward. And also I want to talk about the budget in the sense that the budget itself was one thing, an arduous task at least, but the other part of that, the commissioner seems to have ladled out some responsibility for you in the execution of that budget that has given you quite a bit of latitude to make sure what the expectations of the commissioners is move forward. Talk to us about that, because it's especially as it relates to looking at departments and grant funds and what may be seen as ways that we can offset certain duties that can be done through grants, or even now more than any time, this whole idea of technology. How does it change that dynamic of needing a person sitting there doing something that technology can do it? That's a big chunk. But
if the last year or last 2 years have taught us anything, it has taught us that we have not done a good enough job in getting the message out about what is going on. We have talked about it, and the pandemic created some limitations on what we felt like we could do. But as we go into the times now, the commissioners have made the commitment that the first thing that we're doing is we're trying to do a better job of getting information out. We invested. We're getting ready to invest in a brand new web page. And as one of my young guns that work on this told me, he says, Mr. Causey, what you have done up until now is you have provided customer information. We need to get to the point we're providing customer service. And all of a sudden, that terminology hit me as to what this person was saying. We have got to do a better job with the technology to create a web page that is interactive, that lets you as a customer come in and get the information that you need and feel like it is correct. We have got to do a better job of providing information that if you're wanting to get a building permit or a septic permit or whatever it is, we've got to do a better job of getting that information on the web page, that you've got correct information that is secure, that as much of that business as possible can be occurred. At the same time that we're also working on our Sampson County Facebook, and we're trying to commit a lot of time and resources in order to give active information about what the county is doing. And that, I think, will set the stage to hopefully help people get interested. And I think if somebody wants to be critical of the county, I think they can be legitimately critical. And quite frankly, we have done a lot of this, tried to in the past, as a sidebar as opposed to a prime function that we're doing. We are now refocusing some of our resources to make sure that we're going to do. Now, it'll take 8 to 12 months to get this webpage up and running. I think you can already see some improvements in the Facebook, but we are trying to do a better job of getting information so people can see what is going on in the county, and hopefully people say, well, this is an alive place. Once we start doing that and doing a better job, we want the typical resident that lives in Sampson County that doesn't come to Clinton all that often. We want to create as much we want to facilitate their experience by getting as much information as they can without having to go through a number of resources or getting incorrect information. Now, are there going to be some learning challenges as we go through that? Yes, there are. But I think if people will watch, they will see some positive efforts and improvements in this whole process. Then you can use that as your base to come back in and begin to create that awareness where you were talking about earlier of getting people engaged where they wanted to do. Once they see that we're trying to be proactive in trying to do a lot of things and trying to actually meet the needs of the people, I think maybe we can take some major steps forward.
How do we look at that again moving forward with the expectation that you got into delivering and carrying out this budget now? Because it just seems to me, as I looked at some of the things that the commissioners laid out for you to be responsible for, they clearly understand without any question that their role as governance also weighs heavily on your ability to get things done.
That is exactly, in many respects, I'm the person that carries out the policy that is set by the board. If the board does a good job of establishing their policies and the parameters of what they've done, it facilitates the ability of management to carry them out directly. And it's very helpful for me to understand what my job isn't. To many respects, my job is not a policy job. It's not to make policy. My job is to carry out policy within the parameters of what has been established by the county commissioners.
One of the things, and I'm going to read the headline, and we might take up the rest of our time with this, but the headline says, "In search of revenue, Sampson leaders urge sales tax hike." Now, when you first hear that, it's something obviously, and you can explain this, but it has to go through the state legislature and all those kinds of things. That most folks would say, well, I'd rather have a sales tax because it's more evenly distributed. The other part of that is it says, well, the alternative would be, again, an additional property tax. Is it pretty much, foregone conclusion and understanding that even though it's a sales tax, it still means that will be an additional amount of money that people pays if they buy a cup of coffee or if they buy their groceries, they're going to see that increase for the services in this county. So it's not, the takeaway here is a revenue increase is still money coming out of your pocket.
Yes, without question. Excuse me, the whole idea about the sales tax is everybody understands the importance of property taxes. At the same time, we also, in this year's budget, we put a great deal of emphasis on looking at the fees that we charge for services to make sure that they were imbalanced and in tune, and we were working on those. In addition to that, then the sales tax, and to sit here and argue that one is more important than another, we can let everybody participate in that discussion. But the fact that they're talking about sales taxes being a part, it is a way to distribute the opportunity, to distribute the cost of government among as many people as possible to allow everyone to participate.
And I think that the thing is to balance that for folks, the people that, if you just levied a property tax, they would have the total load of it. But if you do the sales tax, everybody participates. And at the same time, those people that are property owners still would have to pay that same sales tax on everything they get.
That is exactly correct.
Speaking of revenue, and I want to touch on this before we run out of time here, but one of the areas of revenue generation as relates to fees that was noted was an $80 increase for folks that a waste disposal fee. Quick question on that, and then you can get into some details on it. Do you see as a result of that a potential increase in the amount of trash that ends up, like we have a lot of it going on now, but the increase in trash beside the road that people says, well, I'm not going to pay a fee to put it in there, I'm just going to throw it beside the road. Is there a kind of a quasi paradox there somewhere?
Yes, that is a legitimate question. That is something we have talked about internally, and to sit here and tell you that we have all of the answers or know all of the unintended consequences, it is not. But this is something, there is a significant cost with that in looking at the cost of the convenience sites. And by law, we can only offset the cost of what we're paying to have those convenience sites serviced and those pickups. That is, you can count. We're increasing county revenue, but we're basically only offsetting the cost of those sites. So it is not something we're making money per se, other than the fact that we're trying to collect the cost of operating the convenience sites. And even with that $80 fee, we do point out that people still have the Snow Hill site that they can go to and will be able to if they want to go that far and carry their own trash, and it will not cost them, nor are the people in municipalities being charged with that. However, everybody can participate that would like to. But yes, we understand we're going to have some growing pains with this.
The other part of that is just for clarification point. Those farmers, and there's a lot of them out there, and you know a lot about the agriculture business because you've had your share of work in the agriculture area. But those farmers say, well, look, I've got 4 or 5 container sites at my operations here and there. Why should I have to pay a fee to take my trash there if I'm using my container site?
Well, you know, you're separating the residential from the business. The convenience sites are primarily for residential usage, and most of the people have business. Then there's different arrangements that are done for those people as well.
But they would still have to.
For their personal use, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So they still have to participate in that process. The other thing that I look at as revenue generators is that going forward, are there other fee structure areas that you see that may change in the coming year, although incremental, but could have a major impact?
I think, I don't know that I have anything specifically in mind, but looking at fees across the board on a regular basis is something we will be entertaining and looking at to see the feasibility. We'll be doing comparisons with what other counties are charging for similar services, and should we do this? And I think the commissioners primarily are looking at this as from the standpoint most people do not really mind paying for a service for which they're getting the benefit. You know, same thing now. For example, if you go into a county and go put a septic tank in or building, people expect to pay a permit for that service to offset some of the cost. So from that standpoint, we are going to continue to look at a variety of things to see if adjustments need to be made. To specifically tell you I have anything in mind today, I do not.
How do you see the future when you look at it, Ed, as it relates to technology? What's technology going to do to help offset some cost going forward? I mean, right now we're looking at this whole new emerging area called AI, alternative intelligence. It seems to be not only scary, but, you know, huge possibilities there. What do you see happening there?
I think moving forward, I think it's going to have an effect on us, and we're going to try to take advantage on as much of it as possible. Keep in mind, though, a lot of our employee bases are providing those services that you cannot do with a computer. For example, law enforcement. You know, at the end of the day, if you need a deputy to come to your home, I don't think there's any kind of computer program that can offset it. Same thing for the emergency services. services. Those services are direct benefits, so those people, are, for the most part, are going to have to be in place. Now, can technology facilitate all of these departments where maybe we need less administrative people moving forward? Hopefully so. And through some of our other departments, if we can become more technology based, it is possible that we can reduce some of the cost of human infrastructure. But at the same time that we consider doing anything, it is important that the end result or the customer service aspect of that be better than it was before. We don't want to engage in technology just for technology unless it's going to offer an improvement to the life and welfare of the people of Sampson County.
Last question I got, and I got about 30 seconds here to get this in, is this idea of the top departments in the county that use the majority of the budget. I would suspect the first one would probably be education. Give us the top, say, 2 or 3.
From the county system, of course, you've got the school systems that are separate, that fund, but are not a county department. You've got law enforcement, you've got Department of Social Services, you got the Health Department, and Emergency Services.
All of them vital and critical parts of government. I got 15 seconds for closure in case you got anything you want to say.
No, I appreciate the opportunity to come and participate, and we do want to do a better job of giving people good information for which they can make decisions that helps them benefit and save time as they pursue needs with county government.
And if there's anybody needs any clarification on anything, they can reach out to you. They can reach out to one of your departments in the county for clarification on anything that we've said, or if there's something that they have a suggestion for you, they can, of course, reach you at the county office complex. Or, as I've seen you a lot, and just about everywhere you go somewhere in an event, I'm seeing you there. So thank you for doing what you're doing. We thank all the commissioners and all the county employees for what they do. Their services are vital. And ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to seeing you again next week right here on We Should Know, as we bring you another program that hopefully will impact your life in a positive way and maybe give you a bit of information and education that will benefit you. We look forward to seeing you again, and may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host JW Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.